Now, they often say, cometh the man, cometh the hour. 10 o'clock is that moment for us right here in Newzroom Afrika, channel 405. That's when our Xoli Mngambi will be in conversation with Police Minister Bheki Cele, a wide-ranging, in-depth interview, helping us reflect in part on developments over the past couple of hours. Xoli, I don't even know if an hour is enough.
I want to think it's probably going to be enough, Ayanda, but good morning, colleagues. I'm hoping that producers are going to allow, if the interview is striking enough and the minister, importantly, is honest enough, I suspect we may just go over time, because as I was listening to your interview with David Bruce, whom I've interviewed many a times, by the way, about issues of police brutality, he reminds us that in April next month, it's going to mark 10 years since Andries Tatane was shot dead by police. You move on from Andries Tatane, then it's 2012. What many would have thought in South Africa would have been the turning point, the Marikana massacre. And I'm going to talk in a moment about the recommendations that I set up last night, refreshing myself as to what were the recommendations specifically around public order policing. Then in 2013, it is Mido Masia. Remember him in Alex?
Yeah.
Dragged in a behind a police van. And then you fast forward to 2020 in August, Nathaniel Julius. Shot dead. And it's alleged that the ammunition that was used was actually prohibited. And then you have this incident.
I mean, all of the incidents that you point to, and I think, you know, the Andries Tatane issue is 10 years on now, such a sobering one, because we remember watching that live on air, how that man struggled for his life. It was such a devastating moment, and you talk about...
Is it not striking, Michelle, and I'm sorry to cut in, is it not striking that he was shot in the chest, and I'm sad to say that the gentleman who is now late was also shot in the upper body, and there was a specific wound on the upper body.
It's quite difficult, especially because, I mean, you mentioned the fact that we watched all of this taking place on air, and in fact, the Marikana situation we also watched taking place on air. I wonder, what are some of the most pressing issues, Xoli, that you think the police minister will have to now, hopefully, definitely have to address, given what we've been able to cite really at the top of our memories, which is telling, right?
And I'm glad you asked that, Ayanda, because then comes Marikana, the commission. It wraps up its work, and it comes out with specific recommendations that in South Africa, at the time that the commission wrapped, they was very clear that there isn't a single unit in the South African Police Service that is capable of controlling a crowd. How can that be? Not a single unit is capable of dispersing in an orderly fashion people who are armed with weapons and what have you. There are specific recommendations around, you heard David Bruce about the kind of weaponry that is in the possession, particularly of the public order policing. Automatic rifles. They said R5s have no place whatsoever in public order policing. And then they conclude by saying a panel of experts ought to be assembled. That panel must not only train the police officers in particular in public order policing, but they've also got to review the prescripts of the public order policing in order to make sure that police play by the rules all the time. So this is part of the line of questioning that I'm going to put to the minister. But the other element, I caught the tail end of your interview with Professor Spamandla Zondi, and I am going to ask the minister about this particular one. That is that in South Africa, do we have a police training problem, or do we have a police personnel do we have a police personnel that is not just trigger happy, but that simply lacks respect for black lives?
Yeah, that for me is, and Bheki Cele has already come out and said there is no difference between how police treat protests with white South Africans and protests with black South Africans. We can note several examples in the very recent history. Talk about Senegal in the past few months.
There we go.
Where a courthouse was stormed by white protesters, a police van was overturned.
There we go.
Not a single shot was fired. So that's certainly it's something that the minister, I don't see how any of this is going to change if the minister himself does not admit that these are very real problems, first off, and this is how we're going to deal with it.
Yeah. You said, Ayanda, it's a wide-ranging interview, so it's going to cascade down to police leadership issues. How in the world do they hope to turn things around when we are told that the police minister is at loggerheads with his commission?
Yeah.
Yes, so then the backdrop.
There is a report suggesting that the police minister has written to the president to ask that the president look into the fitness of Ketlas Tole's
to hold that office.
To hold that office.
Yes.
Ketlas Tole's conduct or
yeah.
whatever. I don't know how it is achievable that they will turn things around if at the very top there are serious problems.
I asked if an hour is enough because the minister's also been in the headlines for his supposed tea meetings with the former president in Nkandla. Surely that must be on the agenda.
I'm not going to give that away, but you're prompting it now, but I'm not going to tell you the actual question that I'm going to ask of the minister.
Because Bheki Cele is watching this very freely.
So we're giving tips away.
We're already tips, yeah.
Fair enough. All right, Xoli Mngambi joining us for that conversation at 10 o'clock. Make sure you set your alarms. Make sure that you've put all things aside right here on Newzroom Afrika in conversation with Police Minister Bheki Cele. A wide-ranging interview as, of course, we ventilate the different issues taking place in the news cycle.